outline it into three parts. That is, first I'll be talking about academic writing. Second is on the types of research articles. And the third section will be on the shape of an article. And just to inform that I'm not an expert, but I hope after this session, we can share some of our experiences in writing any of these six types of research articles. Maybe we can learn from those experiences and be a better writer. Okay, before we start with our academic writing, I would like to just share our top Malaysian writer, which is Zen Cho, which is a Malaysian who won the William Crawford Fantasy Award. She writes science fictions and fantasy. We also have the second person is Tan Tuan Eng, a Penang-born lawyer turns author. And he's a recipient of the Asian Literary Prize, who wrote novel The Garden of Evening Mist, and in many languages. And the novel has been translated. And we have one academician, Dr. Faris Ahmad Noor, who won the International Convention of Asian Scholar Book Award. And he's in Singapore now, and he's into politics and Islam. And the fourth Malaysian writer is Nazehan Huzi Ahmad, a Kelantanese, and he writes novel and children's book. This is in Malaysia. And of course, the next person, which we are very familiar with, is J.K. Rowling, who is now a billionaire author. And she's a British. And as we know, she mentioned here, her book, Harry Potter, was rejected in 1995 by 12 publishing house. And at the age of 54 this year, she sold over 500 million of the book worldwide, and making her the first billionaire author. So do not be disheartened if or when your articles or your paper or your book is rejected. So keep on sending to various journals and conferences. Okay. Next is we go into writing. When we talk about writing, it's a dynamic process where we have the elements of a good writing must have this element, the purpose, the audience, clarity, unity, and coherence. Coherence is a consistency. And unity, usually it includes the way you write, meaning when you write, each paragraph must have only one idea. And when you talk about clarity, here it involves the audience, meaning when you write, you must be able to make your reader aware of your purpose of writing. And as we mentioned here, writing is a skill that can be learned and developed with practice, just like sewing or playing an instrument. So learning to write and using writing for communication and learning are not natural activities such as learning to speak. It requires a lot of schooling. And the kind of schooling that teachers offer to advanced writers have changed over time. So here I would like to give a short history of writing education. And when we talk about writing education, it starts in ancient Greece at about 500 BC, where writing was part of the both rhetoric education and of more elementary schooling for clerks and other craftsmen who needed a certain technical writing ability to record information for trade and administrative purposes. This is according to Murphy. And later, we have in the 19th century, there's a transition. There's a transition from the transition of mass, meaning we have during this century we have the installation of public schools where we have the blackboard and chalk kind of system where, and then also during this time, we also have the transition from product-oriented to process-oriented kind of education, writing education. And as for the 20th century, we have another transition from, we have the concept of genre and content criteria and computer-assisted writing has become the norms. And also now we have this new written communication such as blogs, personal website, and e-list. Okay, so when we talk about academic writing, there's no standard format for academic writing that can be applied to all topics across all disciplines. So what counts as acceptable academic writing is your subject is rooted to the kind of practices and conventions that have been developed in your discipline over time. So what is regarded as a suitable format for academic writing in business management may not be the same as in computer science. So when we talk about academic writing, the characteristics are three. We have content, organization, and language. Content here meaning you have to improve, or it involves the reading skills. Organization includes the pattern of your writing. It can be argumentative, descriptive, and of course the language we have. It has, as I mentioned earlier, it has to be unified and in complete sentences. Okay, when we talk about objective, the main objective of academic writing is to convey information and stimulate critical thinking. To achieve this, the ideas presented is directly related to the thesis or central idea of the topic, and is controlled by the purpose and the audience that the writer has in mind. So these ideas are supported by concrete evidence such as facts, research findings, statistics, reason, personal experiences, examples, and experts' opinion. The point discussed or developed in each body paragraph should be relevant to the topic sentence of the paragraph. So here I'm giving an example of thesis statement or topic sentence. So in our writing, for example, if we are writing on this Andrew Carnegie, personal financial success and contribution to the US manufacturing and philanthropic often overshadow the tense working condition, poor wages, and strained labor relations between the steel magnate and the people whose hard work enable him to spend lavishly. So this is the thesis statement. So from the thesis statement, we will expand into the 4 topic sentences. We have one is the personal financial success, which is expanded, and the second is the tense working condition, and number C is the poor wages. 4 is the strained labor relation between the magnate and the people. So this is how you expand. For example, for the 4th sentence, topic sentence, low wages and harsh working condition, which is the old definition given earlier, strained labor relations between Crane and the people whose hard work enable him to spend lavishly on philanthropy. So this is just to show you the importance of writing your thesis statement correctly. Okay, next is in academic writing, the other skills that we need to we need to be able to engage in is the reading skills. And when you are reading, you have to be able to read at these 3 levels. That is, if you are reading, the first level is affirmative reading, critical reading, and literal reading. So if you are just reading, if you are applying affective reading, meaning you are using the reader's intellectual and emotional responses to what he read. Critical reading is the process of questioning and evaluating reading materials, and is closely associated with the reader's ability to think critically and to react intelligently to the writer's idea. And if you are at this level, lateral reading level entails the ability to recognize words accurately, to identify topics, main ideas, and supporting details, to understand sequence of event, to recognize cause and effect relation, and to interpret direction and to understand organization patterns used in the various types of reading method. So that is the reading skills that is required to write. And when you talk about organization, it involves the pattern or types of writing, such as descriptive, narrative, definition, classification, cause effect, problem solution, comparison, contrast, argumentative, or discussion. However, it is important to note that in most circumstances, a combination of these patterns is used to communicate the idea. And of course, the third characteristic is language. So there are three simple tense that make up 98% of the academic writing. And the three simple tenses are present tense, past tense, and present perfect. These tenses can be used both in passive or active voice. So the present tense, the most common tense in academic writing, is usually considered as the default unless there is a certain reason to choose of the tense. For example, scholars share a common argument that engineering is the most male-dominated of all professions. And if you are using the simple past example, we say Rocher and colleagues first documented this effect of their seminal paper. If you are using the present perfect example, is that there has been a large body of research regarding the effect of carbon emissions on climate change. So this is regarding the languages that we used. So here again, I'm showing an example of the thesis statement that we can use. So the title is Graduate Unemployment in Malaysia. So in the introduction, this is the thesis statement. The problem of unemployed Malaysian graduates has been attributed to a mismatch between focus of higher education institution and the need of the industry, lack of experience and skills among graduates, and the selective attitude when choosing jobs. So from the thesis statement, as I've presented earlier, we have to come up with the topic sentence in the body. So one of the topic sentence as mentioned here is one reason for this mismatch between focus of higher education institution and the need of industry. The other one is incompatibility in the knowledge provided by the higher education. So this topic sentence can be more than 3 or 4 or 5, depending on how long is your research paper. So lastly, usually when you come up with a paper, the conclusion, usually when we conclude, we should reinstate what is in the thesis statement. So lack of relevance in the tertiary education system and lack of skills and experience among graduates, as well as being particular about the jobs they apply for, seem to be the causes of graduates' unemployment in Malaysia. So that is the conclusion. This is just another example. Okay, next we come to our research paper. So researchers, it comes from a old French word, which means to seek or search. Means again. So in other words, research paper is an intensive search with the purpose of becoming certain, or it can also be a systematic investigation into reality to gain knowledge. A good research paper addresses a specific research question or a study objective, or the main hypothesis is the central in organizing principle of paper. So usually for hypothesis, usually it involves quantitative type of research paper. Okay, next. This will be the articles that I'll be doing or be explaining. So how I explain about these 3 types of articles is that I define, and then I give examples of the format, and also the main points, example of some of these articles. So we start with conceptual. Okay, conceptual research is defined as a methodology wherein research is conducted by observing and analyzing already presented information on a given topic. So conceptual research does not involve conducting any practical experiment. It is related to abstract concepts and ideas. Includes one or more formal theories as well as concepts and empirical findings from literature. It is used to show relationships among these ideas and how they relate to this research study. So conceptual, this is an example of a conceptual paper. The topic is on leveraging on mobile payment methods to gain competitive advantage by local-based businesses. So this is a conceptual paper. So we have, I've included the introduction of this paper. So the introduction, it says here, mobile payment methods have popularity with big businesses operating in large towns and cities across the world. These payment methods enable the business customers to access their cash at the point of sale and do not need to have physical money to complete their transaction. So this study therefore helped in understanding the mobile payment method preference for the local-based businesses and how these preferences have failed to prevail. The research will therefore address the gaps that is viewed as low uptake of mobile payment methods by the local-based businesses, which are essentially operating in remote areas. So these concepts build upon various insights that have been undertaken by various researchers in business and information technology field to bridge the gap of strategic implementation of information technology systems in business to gain competitive advantage. So this I'm using Lango's example of conceptual paper. So next, after introduction, we have to explain the need of this study. So the need of this study, before we have to show that there's a need for this study. It is estimated that more than 5 million people have access to mobile phone devices, and that out of this figure, about a third of the population is based in local areas. Further, the village-based businesses do not have immediate access to the physical money banking system as they are located kilometers away. So this is just to support the need of this study and the research. So it says here, they must be able to implement systems that are competitively superior. And to support, Bakri and William and Namada established that the areas with large area of low-income earners experience low intake of technological advance and businesses, and these locations are not keen on leveraging on technology. The concept will therefore be intended to identify the salient factors that local businesses can apply in leveraging on mobile payment methods to gain competitive advantage. So, in other words, the research that will be carried out later will, the purpose is to identify the salient factors of mobile payment methods. So, after the need of the study, you have to give the background. Several studies have concluded that mobile payment methods is one of the major factors put in place by businesses in gaining competitive advantage. However, this has also not been achieved in remote areas. As a result, in their study on mobile phone technology and the evidence performance of micro and small enterprises concludes that there is an impact on the use of implementation of mobile phone technology. So in other words, besides the information in this background, we also include, many scholars also agree that there is a significant relationship between mobile payment methods and gaining competitive advantage. Okay, this to support the background information that is relating to leveraging on mobile payment methods to gain competitive advantage for local-based businesses. So at the end of the background, we will mention that this study will therefore be focused on the factors of consideration for leveraging on mobile payment methods to gain competitive advantage by local-based businesses. Okay, after the background, then we will identify the objective. So the objective of the research is to influence or is to determine the influence of perceived risk on the use of mobile payment methods to gain competitive advantage by local-based businesses. And the second objective is to determine the influence of payment characteristic. They have put there 4 characteristics on the use of mobile payment methods to gain competitive advantage by local-based businesses. And of course, the third objective is to assess the influence of personal innovativeness on use of mobile payment methods to gain competitive advantage by local-based businesses. So from the objectives, we will have to come up with the research question. Does perceived risk influence the use of mobile payment methods to gain competitive advantage by local businesses? Does payment characteristic, the 4 characteristics, influence the use of mobile payment methods to gain competitiveness advantage by local-based businesses? And does personal innovativeness influence the use of mobile payment methods to gain competitive advantage by local-based businesses? So these are the research questions. So next will be the research methodology. So the study intends to use cross-sectional survey design in determining the leverage of mobile payment methods to gain competitive advantage by local-based businesses. And the study will sample 478 local-based businesses registered in Kenya out of the population of 4,000, which are mainly registered and offsetting. So the study will collect primary, secondary data, quantitative data generated will be analyzed using descriptive statistics, which will include percentage distribution, mean, and frequency. So the qualitative data from the study will undergo transcription and reported in teams and subteams. And the relationship between the independent and dependent variables will be explained through multiple regressions. So in our conceptual paper, we have to include the methodology. So that is an example of a conceptual, the content. So this is just to show an example of a abstract of a conceptual article. So the title is The Function of Management as Mechanism for Fostering Interpersonal Trust. So when we look at this abstract, first of all, it says the central purpose of this article is to draw attention to ways that interpersonal trust between supervisors and employees can be fostered through activities associated with the 4 functions of management. So interpersonal trust has received increasing attention as an important variable for effective management and the success of organization. Further, managers serve a critical role in promoting organizational success. Practical insight regarding activities that promote interpersonal trust within each of the 4 functions of management is briefly discussed. These insights are offered with the intent of encouraging more deliberate focus on trust within the function of management. So this is an example of a conceptual paper article. Okay, so here is another example of conceptual paper where I took from Miller Schreider. So in his paper, we have the introduction, we have the concept of trust. So, and then we have the importance of supervisor-employee interpersonal trust in the context of management functions. And then he includes the function of management, planning, organizing, leading, and controlling, and conclusion. So this is an example of the conceptual paper. Okay, the difference between conceptual framework and theoretical framework is that it says here it grounds the study in the relevant knowledge base that laid the foundation for the importance of the problem statement and questions. Conceptual. Theoretical, used when investigating a specific theory. A conceptual framework is made up of theoretical and empirical work relevant to the manuscript purpose, where the purpose is not to further investigate a specific theory. So here is an example of linking the research objectives to the conceptual framework. This is just an example of why university has failed from the perspective of the employer. So we have, if we are based on the research question, broad-based research question, how do universities develop curriculum? Or are employees involved in curriculum development and approval? If it's a broad, if it's a specific kind of objective, we have to ascertain the level of match or mismatch between the university and the curriculum, and determine the type of market study, categorize information sought from employment. So when you are doing the conceptual paper, you have to include the methodology, the concept, which includes, we have here education or training orientation, university curriculum development policy. You have to look at that. You have to do a market study, and we also need to have information from employees, maybe through questionnaires. Okay, so then only we can identify the level of match or mismatch. Okay, next we talk about theoretical article. It is based on theories. Theories are formulated to explain. Theories are formulated to explain, predict, and understand a phenomena, and in many cases to challenge and extend existing knowledge within the limit of critical boundary assumption. So the theoretical framework is the structure that can hold or support theory of a research study. The theoretical framework introduces and describes the theory which explains why research problem exists. So we have how do you develop a theoretical framework? So these are some of the steps that we can follow. So first, examine your thesis title and research problem. The research problem anchors your entire study and forms the basis from which you construct your theoretical framework. Brainstorm on what you consider to be the key variables in your research. Answer the question, what factors contribute to your presumed effect? Review related literatures. Find answers to your research questions. List and construct the variables that might be relevant to your study. Group these variables into independent and dependent categories. Review the key social science theories that are introduced to you in your course reading, and choose the theory or theories that can best explain the relationship between the key variables in your study. And lastly, discuss the assumption or proposition of this theory and points out the relevance of your research. So this, just to give you an example of a theoretical paper, so I'm using management as my topic. So if we were to look at a theory of management, so we have, first of all, we will talk about the definition and history, and then the basic management functions, and we also include the behavioral aspect of management. So then you get the management foundation. And from the management foundation, we will include emphasis of individual performance, which includes encouraging effort, developing abilities, and defining directions. Plus, an understanding of the process which produce the goods or services. Here, we are looking at the basic management concept of system, what the type of system being used. Okay, and then which is equals to successful management. And when we have successful management, we add an appreciation of contemporary issues. Contemporary issues is important, and also the future. So here we talk about ethics and also the social responsibility and also the future of management and also the importance of technology in investment management in the 20th century. So last, it equals to responsibility management. So this is just to give an example of how you can come up with the theoretical paper. Okay, next we have literature review papers which contribute to understanding of the subject under review. Usually in literature review articles, we describe the relationship of each work, identify new ways to interpret and fill in the gaps from various research, resolve conflicts under contradicting previous study, identify areas to prevent duplication of effort, point out the way forward for future research. So this is a sample of literature review abstract paper. So straight away it says this paper provide an overview so of the evolution of management theories with emphasis on human resource management, HRM. So it examines the early physiological viewpoint which laid the foundation for the development of management theories. So these are it traces the evolution of management theories, from the pre-industrial revolution through the two world wars to the era of rapid economic growth of 1960s to 80s. And in recent years, management theories has become more multifaceted, where emphasis has shifted from behavioral science to organizational structure and quality assurance. So with rapid globalization and increasing importance of cultural awareness, the paper concludes that more research will be needed in area of social, cultural, and multinational human resource management. This is just an example of an abstract for literature review paper. So the whole, I took an example of paper for literature review. So usually the first, it includes the historical perspective, scope of literature review, explaining about the Western publication. Second is origin of HRM theories. And then the third will be the traditional management theory. Traditional management theories, where it includes bureaucratic management theory, administrative, scientific management theory, and also the behavioral theories. So that is for literature review article. So next is our empirical studies articles. So this empirical research is based on observed and measured phenomena and derived knowledge from actual experience rather than theory or belief. How do you know that it's empirical? Usually we look at the headings and subheadings within the article, book, or report and look for the description of the research methodology. So when you have the word methodology, meaning it's an empirical study paper. So the key characteristic to look for is the specific research question, the population used, behavioral or phenomena being studied, and also we have to describe the process used to study this population or phenomena. And the structure of empirical research, usually we have abstract, introduction, that is the thesis statement, literature review, methodology, research, definition, discussion, conclusion, and reference and appendix. This is the structure. Okay, next we have an example of abstract of empirical paper. So usually for empirical papers, we have specific some abstract, and we have, okay, the purpose is to respond from empirical point of view to the next question: does management system based on standard hinder innovation processes? So they include methodology, findings, and originality. Meaning the majority, if you talk about originality, The majority of the work on innovation and quality management systems available in the current literature is based on a framework of total quality management. In difference, the empirical analysis illustrated in this paper is focused on various characteristics of standardized management system, for example, the current and future application and integration. So this is regarding the impact of management standards on the innovation processes. Okay, next we have what are methodological articles? When we talk about methodology, it's a systematic theoretical analysis of the method applied to a field of study. It comprises the theoretical analysis of the body or methods and principles associated with the branch of knowledge. Typically, it encompasses concepts such as paradigm, theoretical models, phrases, and quantitative or qualitative techniques. So usually we'll see the phrase like the analysis of the principle or method, rules, and postulate employed by discipline. So these are examples of methodological type of articles, a study or descriptive of methods. Okay, so this is a sample abstract of a methodological paper. The study is a comparison of strategies employed in management research in 2 periods through a content analysis of articles from the academic management journal, administrative science quarterly, and the journal of management. We examine the use of research method for addressing issues of triangulation and validity, including internal, external. These are all the statistical construct, statistical conclusion, validity. Result indicates that some potentially important trends in reports of research strategies as well as decreases in the internal, external, and construct validity of the study. This is an example of the methodological paper. And last, we have case study articles. So case study research is defined as a qualitative approach in which the investigator explore a real-life contemporary bounded system, that is a case or multiple cases, over time through detailed in-depth data collection involving multiple sources of information and reports in case description and case scheme. So many things cannot be explained by referring to quantitative data only. Example, what motivated a female company CEO to retire at the age of 40 in order to further studies at the master's level in fine art? So these are examples of the case study articles. So okay, now what I have done here is I took a sample of a case study from Amy Garten. Is an analysis on human resource practices at Starbucks Coffee Company. So in this case study, the organization it reports on the analysis of human resource practices at Starbucks Company. So it says the organization must perform a reliable and successful level to stay in business. One indicator of organizational performance is its human resource outcome. To be competitive in a global marketplace, a large multinational organization should manage human resource as strategically as any other divisions or department. Starbucks is an example of a strong human resource strategy coupled with logistical planning and effective management. It serves as a strong example for all large organizations to model human resource. So the strategy at Starbucks is that human capital is a large investment for any organization. Management of this capital is a necessary task to ensure strong return on the investment. So human resource management requires strong strategy to effectively and efficiently achieve goals. The strategy management program and all other human resource activity are then required to determine relevant dimension of performance and the impact on the company's success based on this research by Chania. So the Starbucks mission is to inspire and nurture the human spirit, one person, one cup, and one neighborhood at a time. So that is their mission. And the company fulfill this mission through ethical sourcing of product, environmentally friendly processes and recycling practices, and employee service in the community. After the era of Great Depression, the company launched a new motto, "Great Coffee Everywhere," and grew to include international location and in-home and at-home product. This growth also include the acquisition of the La Boulange Seattle Best Coffee, the Evolution Fresh and Tivane brands. With large competition like Dunkin' Donut and new setup, Starbucks is supposed to be the leader in the next generation of coffee shops and to be left behind as an outdated relic. So in fact, if we talk about Starbucks, last year, they won the CSR in Malaysia for their CSR activities for Starbucks. And other information in the case study is it mentioned about the employee. Unlike most large companies, employees of Starbucks are called partners and are encouraged to join young and build a career with organization. So human resources are handled by Starbucks, the partner resources department with 500 employees serving roles in staffing, learning and development, compensation and benefit, organizational development, and partner services. So researcher Swan in 2014 described the engaged employee impact on the brand are as follows. Employees who identify with the organization will adopt suggested workplace behavior and be motivated to support the company's product and brand. Yet, prior research also prompts us to suggest that this effect will be mediated by the employee's customer orientation, and identification is known to encourage behavior that benefit this collective. Thus, the more an employee identifies with the organization, the more he or she will seek opportunities to contribute to the company's performance. Because serving customers' needs is the key way that frontliner employees help the company maintain and deepen relationship with those customers, such as employees may view their own effort to contribute to customer loyalty and helping drive long-term organizational success. Remain competitive, the coffee and food and beverages marketplace. Starbucks needs to keep its partners happy and public coming back for more. So the other thing about Starbucks is their recruitment processes, which are an important part of any human resource strategy. So economic crisis, market booms, and natural disaster and other unforeseen occurrences should not turn the hiring or firing process into a tailspin. Instead, organization should have a strong plan to weather any literal or metamorphical storm, and long-term vision should include anticipation of the need for new hire, job specificity, strong candidate pools, logical assessment of candidates, securing the best talent, integrated new hires, and reviewing process for efficiency and efficacy. Though Starbucks responded to the recent recession with slashed jobs and closed location, later efforts focus on long-term goals and recruitment strategy. So the Starbucks College Achievement Plan was recently launched, offering free college education through Arizona State University, online to all partners, including part-time employees. So that is how they take care of the employees and recruitment processes. So they have in Starbucks, they have this training structure, and it says here, business failures can sometimes be solved through training to develop new skills, refine efficiency, and instruct staff on new policies, procedures, and tools. So they have a training session for their staff. And as an example of a luxurious training session, Starbucks took the entire workforce off the line for 3 hours barista training event, focusing on making perfect espresso in the middle of the economic meltdown in 2008. So the other case is on the organizational effectiveness. So it says here Starbucks has a strong human resource strategy and management system. This led to high organizational effectiveness in the industry, stemming in part from the successful employees engagement. So positive employee engagement leads to a physiological climate, cultural attitude, and set of employees' behavior that positively impact an organization from top to bottom. Therefore, it is safe to say that Starbucks partner resource has a positive effect on the organization as a whole. So this is just to give the example of Starbucks study. Okay, next we have the last section of this paper, of this presentation, is the shape of an article. So it says here, when you talk about the shape of an article, be it any of the types mentioned earlier, the article is written in the shape. An article is written in the shape of an hourglass. So what when we talk about hourglass, usually we begins with general or broad statement, progressively narrows down to a specific on your study, and then broadens out again for more general consideration. So to simplify, meaning your article, the shape of the article should be hourglass. And this is to show you some examples of the introduction for your articles. For example, the introduction begins broadly. Individuals differ radically from one another in the degree to which they are willing and able to express their emotions. And then if you want to be more specific, indeed, the popular view is that much emotional expressiveness is the central difference between men and women, but the research evidence is mixed, and so and so. And we can also include that there is some evidence that men may actually. So these are examples of a statement that you can use when you are writing until you are ready to introduce your own study in conceptual terms. This study, we recorded an emotional reaction, both men and women, to film. So next we have the method and result sections. So when you're writing the methods and result sections, we can use 100 male and 100 female undergrads have shown that one of these two movies are, effective or not. And usually in the discussion section, begins with the implication of your study. So these results imply that sex differences is emotionally. These results imply that sex differences in emotional expressiveness are so forth and so forth. So these are examples of the statement that you can use. And lastly, it says here, when you are writing an article, the opening statement. The first task of the article is to introduce the background and nature of the problem being investigated. So be it whatever articles you're writing, the first task is to introduce the background and nature of the problem investigated. And for the closing statement, it might be grandiose for some journals, but in your study, if your study is carefully executed and conservatively interpreted, most auditor would permit you to indulge yourself in a bit at the both broad ends of the hourglass. So it all depends on the content of your research articles. Okay, so this example of the opening statement, the right way and the wrong way. Usually, if you are opening a statement, usually we say individuals differ radically from one another in the degree to which they are willing and able to express their emotions. The wrong way, sometimes we write, usually we like to refer. Several years ago, Ekman, 1972, and Izzard, 1977, Tomkin, 1980, pointed out physiological neglect on the effects and their expression. It's okay for you can include this statement, but not at the opening statement. So please remember, for any kind of research article, the opening statement is very, very important. Okay, so I guess that is all for my